Apparently we're having gourmet crickets behind the woodshed. Didn't know we were having a whole product line of crickets here. I understand they're deep fried, filleted, casserole, apparently. Ron can see an awful long way from where he's at in Kanukistan. And it's too bad he sees so many crickets that we're going to make food out of them. I appreciate the thumbs up, Ron, and appreciate your broadcast. And this is really where it's at this point. One of the occupations, certainly, but a major one. I couldn't have believed, actually, when I believed what I saw was we were infiltrated as a people and surrounded. And I knew that was most countries that would have rule of law and democracy. I knew that part. I didn't really truly appreciate how infiltrated and surrounded. I mean, how really in-depth this thing is. And until we got into dealing with it directly. And so I appreciate your insights, what you've been doing. Yeah, maybe I'm the kind of guy that did get into the words, and I can tell you, and speaking directly to you, Ron, the words are really, really important. And as we go through this, we're seeing transitions now that these people are adjusting this language. And it's what I've been telling people a lot, especially with our mining law in the United States of America. If you have to stay strictly within the words of the grants, because if you step outside, they'll take advantage. In fact, they're now coming to use the words within the grants. And it's so subtle, the encroachment, that if you don't understand the basis for soil disposal law, you will miss the point. So these people are amoebas. They find an obstacle that you put, and they'll try to get around them. And they're very difficult to deal with. And I would have never really, I didn't fully appreciate, and I don't know if I'm still appreciating even more. We are peoples that are infiltrated and surrounded to such a degree, and in so many dimensions that they tell us that it is absolutely imperative that we respond. If we have a future at all in our mind for other people even. Certainly if you have little ones coming on and family, you need to really kind of look at this and figure, like I said, just take our guidance, take our lead, what I've been talking, what Ron might be talking with anybody. You remember William Roberts, and I don't know, I think maybe UCY still plays William Roberts' thing. He was telling you about how this worked. What he brought with you with the encyclopedia reading, I was bringing to you at the same time, and what we were doing to address that. And William and I never talked before when we met on one network. We were saying the same things. And so I bring, hopefully, at least the way we do this, an insight on how to address it, and it is addressable. And just to address a quick little thing here, before I move back into where my tabs are, like I don't know what it causes. I got everything all set up, and then I go off onto something else right before the broadcast. I'm starting to look at what I maybe not do so well and haven't done, and I don't know if I can fix it, but I'm trying to analyze what people might be hearing behind the woodshed. And I don't know that, and this is no insult to anybody, but in talking with other people, I guess here's the better way to say this. When I can sit down with somebody with their problem, and it's within the realm of my study that I'm confident, not confident in arrogance, but confident that I can back up. I can show the evidence of the steps and the crumbs of how I got to the part where I'm at to bring anyone along in their problem. They tend to get it. It takes a little bit of adjustment. It takes a little bit of reorientation. Then it takes going to those places, thinking about it, and seeing. Really, it's a new way to see. Then it starts to come clear. Now, and it's only in that small area, but it is that area. And this has never failed yet. When I can sit down one-on-one with anybody, it doesn't seem to translate where everybody thinks in their mind that I'm communicating to you, well, here's a thing, and here's a thing, and here's a thing. And I looked in the chat here. We went in an RLM chat, reallibertymedia.com is where I've got a couple of chats going, actually. So I can't watch them all. But a discussion started going on about this. I told you this before. I want to say it clearly again. This focus on government as corporation is one of the things that they blinded us with to remove our ability to look past it, to see the bigger problems of the tools they use underneath the cover of that. And so I'm asking people, listen carefully to me here. Don't get too bogged down on the corporation problem. There's a whole mechanism underneath that's hurting you worse and more. I mean, literally, it is dimensional. There's these levels and layers. And maybe that's my problem with being able to discuss it. When I look at the whole, I look through all the layers and I see them all, and I'm trying to talk through all of them. To me, one of the discussions was, well, you go into the court and you have a gold fringe flag. To me, that's not an obstruction. To me, that tells me that that's their jurisdiction. And I walk in and I realize I'm in Admiralty. Fine. It may be in a state court. It may be a constitutional violation. You're in the presence of an occupier anyway. You might as well just give them the Admiralty remedies. Just hand it to them. That means you have to go research what those are. And I'll tell you, they've hidden that pretty well. You really have to search deep. And they did that way back when, folks, way before any of us. Most of us listening to me. They did that way back, and they actually perfected it in 1938, I think. It was the blending of equity and admiralty law. The federal courts did that. See, admiralty is exclusive federal jurisdiction. So, that was a different style of obstruction, occulting, if I can put it that way. And don't get weirded out about all these terms. I mean, I'm just trying to explain that these terms tell us certain things, and we can look at them and tell them they guide us. So, those of you that are getting all wrapped up in this government is corporation, okay, it is. I can show you how. But there's in different capacities and dimensions, and they use all those layers to defeat you, essentially. And when you can look through them and you see what they are, you know how to avoid them or get at their weak spots. You hit the soft underbelly. You find their Achilles heel. You take these presumptions I tell you about, you flip them over on them. You learn the narrowness of where we are, the narrow path, like I was communicating with somebody here, and I remember now, I talk with so many people, we are seriously being, there's an affront coming right now. They're now understanding that we and they are talking the same words. When I told you about this A2030, the people in the governments themselves are seeing what we've been saying, and know we have already been standing in the point they need to take. But see, they can't take it. And so what they do is the words, so I get back to the words are very important to understand. I know it's boring, but you got to put a purpose behind why. You're looking to examine the tools, get your decoder ring so that you can perceive what they're saying and what they're doing. Simply, let's get to sustainable development. These stakeholders, they know they have a problem. They know our court case in 2013 was all over that. We enjoined that process. Now, enforcement's a lot more difficult. You're dealing with global organized crime, so you figure out how that's going to work and how fast it's going to take. It's not like we're just going to flick a switch here. The point is that we attacked exactly what that method is that they are using. And we attacked those entities and the members and their people inside that are wielding that spear. They're giving us the shaft with the spear tip. We have record of that. That we brought up close and we gave them the knowledge that we see them. And we see what they've done. That they have to make this change. And we saw Agenda 2030. Remember now, our lawsuit was 2030. A couple years later now, they bring out Agenda 2030. Which is an agenda from 2015 to 2030. They tell you right up front they were after production and consumption. And yet they actually aren't. And when you understand the word, production, you understand it is not consumption. And those were conjoined in the word and. And they can't do it. And they can't do it, but they'll try. And what they're doing, to give you a heads up, they're taking the word stakeholder and they're making stewards. Because they got to hide the word stakeholder. Because that's a third-party interloper and felon upon someone's property rights. So they got to get rid of that because we've identified it. Again, I've told you this is the amoeba. They will change their spots. They will put new lipstick on the pig. They're the chameleon. And so they moved the word to stewards. They used to use stewardship. Now it's stewards. And then they also attach the word user to production. And this is one of the things I was talking to a friend of mine of, that we do this. We talk about this law about, well, what are we talking? I said, I asked her, did you understand what they did there? I asked, why is the attachment of user to a production improper? And we have to do that analysis, otherwise they win. This other side wins because we're ignorant. And they overrun us with this sophistry. And simply, without getting too much detail so I can move on. In production, you're dealing with soil. I keep saying land. It's not land. It's literally soil and not land. Land is a statutory adulteration, which includes water. So you got to be careful with these things. It also includes just interests and not possession. And this is why I say these words, even though they're boring as heck and they make you fall down and fall asleep a lot, they are required reading in a way. And I don't want to beat this up too much, but it's really, really important because it's how they're killing us. That they're moving to user. How is a producer not amenable to use? Well, because the producer comes from soil disposal law or from the land. The land now becomes manufacture as well. That's the land. That's the stuff above the soil. So, the production is not regulable under commerce. It's production. It's attached, appurtenant the disposal of the soil. That's a completely different authority and jurisdiction, in fact, than commerce, which is consumption, which is what you find out happens after the raw materials are made, and you can find the evidence of this in any court case that touches the rail system to transport that. Transport is in commerce. Possession shifts once it gets into commerce to a different status. The user comes at that point, but can't come before in production. A user is one who uses that which is produced. A producer appropriates property with the appurtenances of the right to develop and extract or manufacture. Manufacturing, timber, minerals, ranching, farming is not commerce. No, not many people understand this, but this was written way back when they shifted from the at-law condition to what they switched into the combination of admiralty, equity, and then administrative in 1946. This discussion comes in 1937. It's in a book. It'll tell you. I can't remember the name. It's the Government of the United States and the States or something. Munro. Look it up. A guy named Munro. Fascinating read. It was right in the middle where you need to find out the transition point. He was acknowledging what was happening, what was coming, and what was going. And he explains right in there. If I didn't know it before, he explains it to me. That these things in production are not commerce, though most people think they are. And so we make this delineation. And when the new words come down to try and make them look this pig with lipstick, they change the color of the lipstick to make you think the pig's even better. Like pigs fly flu, and now it's Zika, Ebola, whatever the heck it is. Okay, they keep doing this. But you see that you can't attach a user to a production, because a user is a user, and a producer is an appropriator. If you don't stick close to that, you think everybody is a user and consumer, even the producers. And they can't cross this line, and we see it. I want you to know about it. Whether you can retell what I just said or not, you need to know that there are lines, and you have to form them. And crickets can't make those lines. So, maybe that's enough for right now. Soil disposal is for production. It's not regulable. Here's the other thing that's starting to catch them. Because these are really important as I move on into a totally different field, but I'll get back quickly. Remember, production is only about the people that involved in production are really specialists. They're specialists in a natural way. Let's not get focused on that more than it's a special thing. It's also only forms about 4% of the population. Those people can never form a political restraint against encroachment if the law can't. There's no way they can't get run down in any capacity. And yet they produce everything the society above them needs. Why? There's a brilliance in soil disposal law that everyone needs to understand. That it separates out the protection you see in the Declaration of Independence, separates out that which sustains a nation from that which is can be monopolized, manipulated, adulterated, commercialized, profitized, and all this other thing. That you're not supposed to touch the production because that destroys your whole works. That you are not supposed to politicize production because those people cannot be politicized in and of their own. They never make up any kind of majority to make their voice, their lobbying worth it. I told you about this in Vilsack many, many years ago when he was actually gloating in the middle of the United States of America when he said, "You folks are politically inert. You have no statement." That was a gloating. They said we defeated you. Well, that was a breach. No, I won't go too deep in all that. I told you that all long ago, years ago. that we're pointing out to the government that they cannot, and their economic development cannot, and their land use cannot, and their jobs initiatives cannot touch production. Those are naturally self-working. They produce the so-called jobs that they produce. And they produce it at the rate that the resource or the source allows it. It's not regulable. Only the man and the woman doing that is best to determine that. We see that in the mining law. The mining law gives to the one possessing the grant, possession of the enjoyment and use exclusively to the property claimed. The determinative right and power to determine how to make best use of that land for the production. That commerce is not production, and the politics is commerce cannot trespass. It is trespassing, but it's a crime when it does that no one stepped up to call until, well, we came along. And we figured about this part. So I'm going to confine my discussion here. Soil disposal is law of the land, folks, as I keep telling you. That cannot be trespassed. They are trespassing it. That's an invasion. And so the government that one of the governments so-called that pretends to be the actual government, the usurpers sitting in the seat of decision trying to explain to everybody how they're all users, we've come along and said, no, we're not, and your excuse that we have a political power is also faulty because we never did. Producers have never been a political force in any nation. And that was where the brilliance of soil disposal law and grantee statuses that I ran across over, 10 or 11 years now, specific to mining law, exposed all of this to me. That we have found a bright line barrier. You cannot destroy your production. You can, but look what, the logical, the natural ramifications is destruction. This is what they want. So we have a line in the sand, if you want to call it that. We call it a line in the soil here. That cannot be crossed. They can't cross it, and they won't. They'll call you a user. They get you to believe you're a user. Why, I was having a discussion with my friend who's a grantee miner himself, and I said, no, you bought into the fact that you're a consumer when you say you're a user. You're not. You're a producer. And to show you, if you want to know where the word works, go to water law, 1866, section 9, granting the water to all lawful uses, corporations too, and you get to claim right to water. And that's called appropriating. It's a property you appropriate for your lawful use. A miner has an interesting water right. Water is non-consumptive use. A miner's use is appurtenant, the grant of the minerals, because without water you can't get the stuff of the minerals that society needs. So the water right comes appurtenant with the grant of the mineral to do the work to extract the mineral that's needed. But it's a non-consumptive use, beneficial and public use of water. I say beneficial and public use because those are the highest uses that can't be destroyed. When you beat up what I'm telling you, it's an inverted point. The producers have beneficial public use standard that's not supposed to be destroyed. The beneficial public use is that so-called public welfare. Well, public welfare before, the public interest before used to be for the people. It used to be the countryside, the county with the lowercase c. Now public is now government. Agency, actually, if you look at the definitions, which are so important. And so public means agency. And so we've got to be very careful when we're talking about these public laws that gave appropriations. It sounds very similar, but it's not the same. It's not a use. It's not a use fee. It's not a franchise. It's an appropriation of property that has its own world. And the trespass cannot happen without a breach in a number of levels. It's crime and fiduciary breaches. I'm not saying it's not happening. That's our problem. What I'm saying is that you have a basis, a foundation from which to come from the law of the land, not the one fabricated in the Constitution, but through the relationships of the disposal obligations of the so-called government, whatever you want to call that. It doesn't matter to me. Whether they sit as a trustee, a proprietor, a sovereign, I don't care. Honor your grant to the expression of it. That's all I need to do here. That's all you would need to do. And you come from the law of the land that way, the law of the soil. And you make sure that you don't walk yourself over into being a user and you become an appropriator of the rights of the soil, extended to you exclusively to the right of the soil. You're not actually owning the soil. And everyone has this argument, so they dismiss this point. No, you're given by the society the place to exclusively develop and extract from the soil the things that are needed by people. And they do that so that chaos doesn't reign on the land where people can't. The whole reason for the mining law was to stop miners from running along and finding the richest deposits and leaving the harder stuff to get. And so what they said is that they tried leasing and it utterly failed. Sales and leases utterly failed. That's what happened, why the mining law comes in. They said, we got to give these miners property to settle them down. They're so independent, they're like cats. They run around everywhere. We got to give them something to settle them down because there's still mineral that they leave. And they don't do it efficiently if we don't let them settle down. We have to settle them. Settle the land. Settlement. Make peace. This is what the law of the land is. And people are missing this. They miss it. They miss it when they throw these corporate ideas on. They miss it when they figure out, they try to just say government's no good. They miss the whole point that the Declaration of Independence was speaking to about rights, capital R rights, which is actually property. And I don't say rights. I always lead with property, then rights. Without property, you got nothing. Not even natural. Why? Because you're in a system of plunder. Wherever the biggest guy with the biggest club or the biggest gang wins. Period. So-called law of the land was a constraint against hurt and harm. Why? Because we're vicious. We're not so nice, I guess. I don't work that way. I'm sure a lot of my listeners don't. And that's why we can't understand why this stuff exists. Anyway, to get back to the point. If we don't constrain our view to what is really going on, and I recognize that Agenda 2030 says production and consumption, and that's a conjunction of both, and that's an impossibility right on its face. Why? I pointed it out to you. And then we see the adjustment moving from stakeholder to steward, and from they were a consumer to user. They're the same family. You can't apply that to production, and they've been trying to, until we come along. And we say, you can't do that, and here's why. And they go, uh-oh, we got a problem. See, they have a problem. And all it takes is your witness to know that. But it takes your ability to resist that deception. And that's a tough one. And we're in a field of deceptions. We're in we're in the battlefield America, everywhere, global. If you're not, I'm talking about, you don't have to worry about the ones happening where they're giving it obvious to us. There's the hidden ones right around our feet. In our law, right at our feet, folks, in the soil. They've tried to claim it. They can't. And there's laws that show that. And if you know, not afraid of dealing with this criminal that isn't the government, it's the people inside it, purporting to be as government. I've told you all of this before, but it's coming to focus a little bit clearer when we really allow ourselves to be persuaded away from getting very strict on how we look at what the reality is. And I say that advisedly. I understand that point. But see, there's a reality, and it has power. Otherwise, we'd be run down by now. That's the glitches in the matrix that you see I tell you to exploit in order to get at them. It's what I exploited when we were developing the lawsuit to go after them. The comment in the RLM chat was, well, you can't use the courts. You can't go to the guy who's beating you down to get justice. That's exactly right. So what was my method? I got rid of the courts. How did I do that? I sued their members. I sued the members that comprise the problem. I sued the organization. What about the legislation? Well, it's all guided by the same members, and then the political parties. Those are corporations. I sued them and their members. And we did it. We sued them with a government. This is what you may have to really appreciate when I tell you some of this stuff. This has got a whole lot of thing behind it. The miners, the law of the grant for the minerals is the miners' law and their mining district law. And in the law, the miners' government was given authority, essentially to protect the miner from the outward encroachment, and amongst themselves, like any other good government would. And that works so well that Congress adopts it for the law of the national policy. And they recognize the government of the miner. So the government of the miner is congressionally recognized as a government. Not as a slave, not as some corporation, not as whatever status you all believe that you're being put under. So I talk about avoidances. You just bring up the alternative reality that they can't trespass to. I'm so far off the point. So much starts coming out. It's so, in my mind, so easy to see and delineate. And that's how I can tell you there's not a bit, even the slightest doubt that we are dealing in all places, in all forms, in all dimensions, with people in government that are criminals. That law that you expect is there. And that's why the crickets are a crime as well. Whether they're filleted, whether they're crispy, whether they're fried, deep fried, battered, casserole, finger food. We can't, if we have a until we respect ourselves enough to understand we need a better day and work for it, it's not happening so well. And the ones with the plan against us, the brutes that have convinced us by their wordsmithing, are going to win the day. And so I'm just asking, I can only ask you to, however long you think you have here, however you think you understand the way things are, don't lock yourself into excuses, into inaction. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear a bit of that, but it's not a judgment from me. I'm just telling you what I've had to go through. It's an experience. I have no critical thought that way. I just know this is the thing it takes. And if we don't want to engage that it can't happen. It's just, we have no way to get there. And like I said, I can sit down with someone who's been listening to me for a long time and doing their own study. Most importantly, the ones that have done their own study has been a joy to work with, even though it takes a little while. To be able to watch someone take the knowledge, which I tell you, it's like a bunch of, your knowledge about what you think you know is all these different stars in the sky, and they're actually just like sawdust in the breeze. And I find out what you think you know, and then I pull the sawdust pieces out, and we slowly make a press board that you can start using to build something from. And it takes a while to do that. You imagine working sawdust piece by sawdust piece to build the board that we needed, the plank to go beat them with in the proper way behind Woodshed. That I'm feeling I'm failing, but I see why, but I don't see how to go beyond. More to tell you, don't use the stuff you've heard on the internet and let it close you down. Get past the idea of the corporation. It's there and it's not there. It all depends on what you're dealing with within the context of the construction of society that's provided for things for us that have been adulterated. I think I see, more importantly, people are rebelling against the wrong they see that ought to have been different, more than understanding how it's correctly done and then going to enforce that. Which time and day we are to the point of private enforcement. In other words, we will do that so-called citizen's arrest. It's here, folks. It's been here for a long time. What I've been trying to explain to you over years is that you have to develop a record that shows you tried everything else before you went to the right to alter or abolish the government as you saw fit. Our lawsuit did a majority piece for that, for everybody, if you understand what happened there. And I can explain it to anybody who would like to have it explained, even though I can't really produce the documents yet while we're still finding out, maneuvering how to arrest organized criminals that are bigger and badder than you. Why? Because you, as a group of people, are so inept and so incapable of joining under a real common cause. Not the one they tell you about they want to impose on you, but the common unified action of independent people. We are so divided, even within I can tell you, the microcosm of the minor is the macrocosm I can identify as the problems in America. It's everywhere. It's global. It's us, folks. It's the failure of people. It essentially becomes ego, I think, at some root level. And if we aren't going to overcome that, to come together, to do the things we need to do, it really is over. Because divided, we fall, folks. This is not my words. A lot of this stuff I just wonder, I wish I was just an encyclopedia of old phrases that would just come out of me and that could make a dialogue, like you do in a court case. Everyone gets all these court cases and these little phrases from the court, and they compile up, and the lawyers do this. You compile up phraseology from other court cases that you string together to make a point. No one seems to look that wasn't your case. None of those cases may have been your present. The facts presented were not. The people may not even been the right jurisdiction, the right subject matter, anything. They just go ahead and stick all this stuff together. That's how this thing works. And it's all an illusion. The Bar Association is sitting there doing this, is running this stuff through. They go through a system that's private. That's where your public is. It's private international law on you, substituting your de jure law. I've talked to you about that. In 1953 that happened. Another occupation that allows this newer global occupation in through the Bar Association admission without all the documents. And then the method we've identified is clearly what, again, getting back to Ron's Game On show, absolutely what he's dealing with up there is what we're dealing here in a slightly different form, but all the same response reactions, applications, and everything. It's not necessarily locked in corporation. I didn't focus on corporation in our lawsuit. That became a side issue when we went after the judge who didn't have jurisdiction to try and get rid of our case, the federal bar member. I knew that was coming. That was part of the strategy. When he came in, I came in, and we came in, and the district came in as a government to say, hey, you just trespassed on our case. You committed fraud on the court, and you're a judge, so-called. You're a party to the case. I sued your membership, even though you're not party. You're not active. You're still a member. We set the trap, and they fall right into it, folks. It's not that hard, actually. So, just wanted to point out, we have to get beyond the bad internet information, and we have to accept some things. I say we have to accept them because I'm telling you by experience, it's much easier road to accept some things as they are and then defeat them. Keep them from being effective. Then you've identified they're there and ineffective. That's better than to say you're not there and have them come club you in the head like a baby seal. I've told you, one of the things is don't ever deny an authority. It doesn't mean it extends to you. It just means it's there. And then if you identify it, it has a limitation. Identify the limitation. Well, talking quickly something else. A friend of mine, cop stops. He says the first question out of his mouth after the cop wanted to see some privilege. He asked him, what's your subject matter jurisdiction? The cop didn't know what to do. It didn't stop anything. The point is he's established the fact that the cop doesn't know. He actually admits he's outside of his training. So his training now is defined as something limited. So the plunder is against us. The war is against us. You're not going into a military area and just think words are going to do this or a piece of paper is the silver bullet. It doesn't work. What you have to do is establish the harm on the record and just keep addressing, keep being persistent. So, enough there, I guess. A little exasperated a bit because there's so much to say, and I don't have the formal idea on how to present it because, as I was telling another friend, I don't deal with things in any chronological or work study. I deal with things on a problem-by-problem basis. Just tell me your facts, and then let me explain to you, again, within my study, let me explain to you what I think you have and what you might do. But it's very hard to do it for everybody. And that's why I just go through this so-called news, we say the notice. Now, so that leads me into what I wanted to open my discussion with here. Just got the word here just Friday on Freaker's Ball that this is the time of year, even though I go and ask every broadcast, please donate as you can. Now is the serious time. Grimner from Real Liberty Media has just advised us that the server bills are coming, the domain bills and such, and that he's wanting to, despite the fact that he wrongly predicted his demise in 2015, I'm glad to hear he's probably given up on that motive, that he's going to actually try to, apparently, if I understand this correctly, try to add another feature onto at least our Real Liberty Media site, if not in conjunction with worldtruth.org again. And they're going to try, and he's, if I understood this correctly, about getting a shoutcast addition or something, maybe a better service for what's going on that you hear me on, I suppose. And again, I haven't talked to anybody. So this is the time of year that he asks that he needs help. If you can, please donate. Go to reallibertymedia.com and donate for those costs. And he says it's about a $200 a year bill. I would ask you to send a little bit more and have him put it away for the year before, and we can maybe stave off his desire to not be here in 2015. We can extend him out a couple more years so he can help us, because he helps me to get the word out. If you value what I say, please help him to get my word out. And the others, anybody else that can come, any of you, there's space to go and bring your voice. And so donate. I was going to read the definition to you instead of say that, but I'm just going to say donate. to provide an electron for a combination with an acceptor is directing you to go to the digital currency, the cryptocurrency that he has, whether it be the Doge coin, the dope coin, or whatever he has there, the Bitcoin, please. And I say, go ahead. I'm not familiar with it, but you can get into crypto coin. I would say use it for the tool it can be. Be careful not to put all your eggs in one basket, but he'll accept lots of crypto coins. He'll accept the Dogecoin. And remember, on my blogcaster, I've made the Doge of War coin, which is actually the same thing, but that's just my flavor behind the woodshed. We're in a war, and the Doge of War has his little aviator cap on, and I hope a lot of people see that and chuckle, because I had a lot of fun. Took a little while to make that, even though I'm not an artist, and I have fun with that myself in my mind, and it was hopefully to give you another place to go ahead and donate. So I'm putting a little bit of time in this one. It's really very important. Grimner has put this out on his own, and he does this. He's done it up until now, and then he gets the donations. But he's made a specific request now, and I would ask you to don't hesitate. We got lots of ways. We got PayPal. He's got lots of things. Just look down the right one of the I think it's the right-hand margin. You can find lots of ways to do it. So please help. And that would then go for everybody else that's doing this, but in particular was this is the time of year when he asked for that, and I want to make sure I say that without equivocation. So important, the work that goes on behind the scenes all day, every day, all the time, and Barman, the little script creation in the chat room that Grimner puts together, fun little thing. I don't know how to use it. I see people tell me, and I don't know. Anyway, it's fun, and it does and it cracks me up that this thing responds. It's a bot that responds in the chat to your you can give somebody a drink, and Barman will give them a drink if you want. So a lot of cool little things, and I think there's a little video as what to expect in the basics of RLM, and I can't wait for the extended version on all the super fantastic features in the next video. But anyway, please, if you can, and don't take any insult for me asking if you can't. Listen, I can't either. And that's real hard on me, but I understand. I understand what's going on here, and I appreciate that there's others that can't do what I can do, that can do what I can't do, that might be able to contribute, and that's the part we play. That's the part we play in this. So appreciate anybody, and I understand that there are donations coming in, and people are being generous, so do ahead, do what you can, and do where you can, as you can. So thank you very much for any of that. I want to go on to something else. Another, again, donating to this, I think, is not being crickets, folks. I think, for as much, if my words fall on deaf ears, then I guess it might be crickets, cricket work. But, I don't think so. I really don't think so. It takes a while. Maybe it's my fault in communicating it. I do know I come back to these topics over and over. It doesn't matter how many times I talk about it. I give you the same response and same answer from the same sources of information. So I know that information's true because I keep having to go back to it to have the narrow path answer. So whether or not I'm communicating correctly, that's me working. I've got to work on that. That's for sure. And I just hope that it translates. So as long as this doesn't fall on deaf ears, and you have enough people out there that are telling me that it's not, which is why I continue. And those that are having ears that change slowly, you got to clear the ears out. It takes a while. It takes a long time to move cluelessness into asking the question why, to remove that cluelessness. And that's all it takes. That to give me more time. If you think there's any value, please go ahead and do what you can there in the donations. That was a special request I think that he makes, that he doesn't make, that I'd like to make sure I get the word nice and clearly out. We need help where we need help. Next thing I would need help to not be crickets was Jefferson Mining District rolled out a petition. And it's available at jeffersonminingdistrict.com. It's on the right-hand side, and you just click on that. It'll take you to the petition page. I was working for many weeks to figure this out and get it so it works and understand it, and working with a lot of things behind the scenes to get this out, to give people a simple opportunity to respond to an extortion and fraud that's going on in the mining law. Now, a lot of you might say, I'm not into the mining law, I don't care. Mining law is soil disposal law. It's property law. It's that law of the land that can't be trespassed. You And don't get lost, all weirded out by these terms, please. They all have different status meanings depending on where you come from on the foundation. So I'm going to say citizen of the United States. Don't get freaked out. I notice a lot of people say citizen of the United States, in the next sentence they say U.S. citizen. Those are two different entities. So, again, the terms are very important here. When they're statutorily defined in a private law, like the United States Code, that's what it means. And so you have to look very careful at what these actually mean. And so when I say citizen of the United States, don't get all weirded out, that a citizen of the United States that's able to accept a sovereign grant of soil is a sovereign, not the slave that happens a few years later in the 42 U.S.C. 1981, that one. You can't be a sovereign, you can't accept as a sovereign if you're a slave. It just can't happen. And guess what that mining law shows that you are if you have the status. It's a whole different relationship, I'm telling you, about the commerce and production. Totally different. It's not a benefit bestowed. There's consideration given for a substance that we have agreed that was an entity that was able to do that for our benefit. You're dealing in the Declaration of Independence here, properly done, actually. Anyway, getting to the point. We have a petition, and we had a problem in a legislature that a lawyer, boo, we hear it now, boo, unified boo, boo, an attorney, a bar member, boo. Come on, we've got to get some energy on this. This is serious, serious stuff. These people are stealing our way of life. We have a lawsuit to prove it. It's not even no question. A lawyer went to a legislature and said he represents all mining owners. And let me get back to the citizens of the United States, or those who are foreign to the United States and intend to become a citizen of the United States for the purpose of accepting the grant of the disposal of the soil to you. You, anywhere, in that capacity, have the right to go fill out this petition because you have that right in the state of Oregon, in the state of Nevada, in the state of Washington, wherever there's lands available to appropriate minerals under the grant. And you have the right to prospect, which this bar member had come into the legislature as a friend. Why the petition says, with friends like this. Remember, the 1,000 Friends of Oregon in 1995 took the representative capacity of all property owners to develop state policy against them, and nobody said anything. Is the same thing. This lawyer just went in November and told a legislative committee that he is representing all mining interests before that board, that committee, for policy considerations of the state that just committed a felony against your rights, folks. Anywhere you are, that you have the capacity to accept this mining law of 1872. That I want to explain it that way. We have a petition now. Thank you in the chat room for the following. Boo, yeah, I mean, this is something we got to get really into. This is really boo hiss stuff, and it's way worse. That we filed a petition. We have a petition available that you read. We have a documentation on JeffersonMiningDistrict.com. Just click on the petition side, the right-hand side there. You'll see it. And then read the definition, listen to it, and you'll listen. You'll listen to the guy telling you how he's stealing your property, how he stole your consent without interfacing with you at all. And he claims this. He lies, folks, that he's claiming to represent everyone in the nation in the state of Oregon. And they've done this in other states. We happen to catch this one. That the petition says you do not agree with him representing that he contacted you, that he did not contact you, and you have not given your consent for him to represent your rights underneath that right to go mining, whether or not you ever wanted to do it. Because if you don't preserve it for you, you don't preserve it for others. And I'm saying it this way because everyone thinks, well, I'm not a miner, so it doesn't matter. And that's not true. This is the law of the land. And this is somebody, a usurper came in, a triple usurper came in, triple level dimensional usurper at least, came in to say, I'm claiming representation of all those property and rights. And then he's incompetent on top of it all. And so the petition simply asks, even though there's a little bit of dialogue to read, not much, but a little bit, and there's 20 minutes at the end of the video file to listen to this guy. You can hear exactly what he's doing. I wouldn't miss a word in this video. This is an action-packed, word-meaning, intensive conversation for 20 minutes. It laid the whole plan out for us, And we're trying to address it to give everybody the opportunity to say, that guy lied to you when he said he talked to me and got my consent for his representation of my property rights and my ability to accept that grant. He didn't. That's what this petition does. If you just fill out the information, all you have to do is give a name and an email. Why? Because you get a receipt back when you click send now. Sign send now. It's an electronically signed. It just kind of sends out with a disclosure of signing. And you can assert to this committee, no matter where you are in the nation or outside the globe who have the right intention to come and do those minerals underneath the law, you can say, that guy lied to you and I don't give you the right to accept that he's representing me. So if you would please, as much as a donation is needed at Real Liberty Media, support for yourself. Respect for yourself and the rights you may even not even know you have. If you understand anything I've told you at all or trust me at all, go read that. I'm not asking you to do it if you don't believe in it, but the simple question behind all that you'll read is, did he ask you to represent you before a state legislature for the purpose of developing state policy? Do you understand that's a facial felony? He has no authority, the state has no authority to make policy against a grant of Congress in a soil disposal. That's how they do it. That's how they're doing it, folks. That's exactly how they did it in 1995 with the 1,000 Communist Friends of Oregon. It's perfect plan the way they execute this. And how do they win? Crickets exist, folks, and we have been crickets. And thank you to all you all that have signed the petition. And the Jefferson Mining District will be using that protest as evidence of this guy's failure. And I would like to tell you what we're thinking to do, but all this becomes evidence that, we work like it's a court of law always, and we use it as evidence of wrongs, and we attempt to effect remedies. So that will help us to do that as well. So we are trying to work for you as well without even knowing you, because the mining district regulates attacks against the grantees. One of the ways is to turn back out and say, you trespass. And worse, we have it down, it's immediately a felony. And this is a hard pill to swallow for these people that think they can hide under the cover of you being a mere user, like your computer. You're a user to Microsoft. You think you own your own computer when they have the software that runs it? Are you subject to everything they want to do? You're a user. It's not too productive, is it? Oh, they'll tell you about all the production you can do, but it's only underneath a user. And aren't you, very good, Gary L. in RLM, definition of usurper, he says, but look at the words, user, usury, usurper. All pretty heinous things, ultimately. Not going to do an etymology on that. I'm just telling you, that's just literally how it ends up becoming down, that they put you into a class of harmer. And then they regulate you. Because a license is a permission to do chaos. In other words, a license is permission to do that which is otherwise unlawful. But because we're the big bad government, we're going to give you a license to do otherwise as long as you're constrained behind these rule sets as a permittee, licensee, regulable entity, person liable, etc., and so forth. I'm saying a ton here as I'm thinking about that. I just had to pause because I'm saying a ton here, folks. It's the crust of a major, wealthy, valuable mineral deposit of knowledge that I'm giving you here. That I'm just disappointed that I'm not able to give you, download my interpretation of the reality to you. I think overnight it would change everything. It changes everything. Does it? Again, there's a mass to deal with, so we got physics to happen. It takes there's a momentum built up in this nonsense, so it takes a while to run down. But if everybody was putting their shoulder to the correct wagon to get it back on the road and then get it in the right direction, it would be a lot less work for every individual one of us. So, if you would please, and I said it enough, jeffersonminingdistrict.com. Go to the petition link. Go ahead and click on over. Read what's there. Understand you're seeing some pretty concentrated petition protest in the petition itself. But that's what needs to be said to set the record that Jefferson Mining District will use as we move in to effectuate the notice to the district that there were people that were lied on, that in their name a fraud was committed. And it was done by one of these professional trade union members to steal their property. It's a felony. And the members that accepted that may have committed a felony too, folks. We have to exploit that. You will help that. You'll help Jefferson Mining District help you. Just by understanding what that petition is and simply putting the cost of some mouse clicks and some keystrokes. And I'm going to have to confide in you. I'm amazed at how many people won't fill that out in defense of themselves. And to be honest and frank about this, those people that cannot see what's going on there may not be worthy of the society and the property, the law of the land, they profess to be protective of or embrace. I'll let that rest on you. It's there. It's available. We've done as much as we can to make it simple and understandable. And do appreciate all y'all. It's really kind of nice to see everyone coming in from all over the country to fill that thing in. So it's really going to put a big, if not worse, at least a big black eye on everybody here. But see, it took a witness against the theft. And that's the part you play. That's the thing. That's all we are right now at this point. We're witnesses to develop the record that shows when the harm happens, there's no accountability. And we expose the system is incapable. And guess what we get to do when we make a record showing we've exhausted all other remedies available? We now give ourselves that license that the Declaration of Independence says we have to alter or abolish as we see fit. It doesn't take the Second Amendment arm. It may take your arms. It may take arms to pencil. It may take arms to raise your hand in a meeting. I don't know what it's going to take other than violence for sure. Even force in defense. Because ultimately the law resides in the people, doesn't it? That's the law of the land. It's just that they get the people divided and there's no way. They bring chaos. They bring anarchy in. That's the democracy. Democracy. Another name for democracy, and the military knows all this, is anarchy. It's a state of a state. It's a state of a society in essentially dysfunction. That's democracy, the mob rule. It's when they get you divided amongst yourself and you lose the focus on what the foundations of your existence is. And that's why this mining law to producers and law of the land, soil disposal, production has been so critical to understand, at least for me. And I think others, when they start to see what when I can sit down and kind of address the nuances of the misunderstandings and point to the sources and reorient all the facts, all this disparate information, it never gets organized. When I can help organize that and then have people go and do their study because now they're interested and they can prove out one way or the other, right or wrong, and I've not been wrong quite yet, it's a whole new thing. It's a whole new thing. And I don't even think you talk the same. I don't even think you can use, you make mistakes until you keep learning. But you don't have to respond to all the, like I told you folks, I don't care if there's a corporation, government, corporate. I use that against them. Fine. Let me find out how that was incorrect. It's, again, I tell you, it's lawful aikido. It's using the supposed, even this fictional enemy against you. It's not so fictional when you get to the people wielding this fiction. When you're working with that, you use their momentum, their status, their condition against them. You find their borders, you find their cell wall, and you penetrate it or you deprive it of what it needs to exist. Even and despite their presumptions against you. You're not free against a bully that puts presumption that he can thump on you. You're going to have to figure out a way to either talk him out of it or thump him back. There's probably not too many other ways to do that. I'm asking you to learn how to talk him out of it. And you just talk him out of it by saying you really don't have the authority. You have authorita. You don't have actual lawful authority. And how about if we just sit down and have some of that nice herbal tea and get along a little bit better? We have a better word in our mouth if we choose to have it. And it's going to take that language that we weren't talked about. That becomes such a pain. I think that's a programming thing too. Believe me, I've had enough falling asleep after just a couple pages of reading. I've found myself sleeping face down on the book. It's not that easy, but you get through it. And as soon as you see how this thing works, then you're looking for all the other things to qualify that that's exactly what you saw, and you just start wielding these swords, these word swords, against them. And it's not even your words. In fact, I told you before, the better thing to do is get their words, use their own swords against them. You bind them with their own spell. It's pretty fascinating, the esoteric side of this. But anyway, a lot of time here, almost an hour. In fact, it was an hour, wasn't it? Donate, help us out at the servers and Grimner and the websites and everywhere else that you can. Sign the petition. Have enough respect in yourself to help yourself and others. Underneath the knowledge, if you didn't know before, that mining law extends to your right wherever you are in the nation, and outside if you intend to come in the nation, to go after those minerals. And there's someone in Oregon, and that's actually it happened in other states. We got to this one too. We got to this one in time. We missed some of the other ones. We can go after them later. Not enough of us, though. We need more people to help this. We understand how to do it, but we got to this one in time. Well, hopefully. I think we did. I would like to just see thousands and thousands of people say, that guy lied to you. And your problem as a committee and a government, you allowed that lie to come into the system to harm me. I don't consent to that. So, moving on. Very sad thing happened here in the last few days. I'm sure everyone's heard about it. The siege over there in Burns, Oregon, resulted in an ambush and execution. A lot of people don't want to call it, they don't want to judge this. I'm going to call it an ambush and execution of one Lavoy Finicum. Happened to be the most peaceful guy. And this may be the power. He may be the actual martyr with the innocence, if you will, that may drive people to understand that we are in a military occupation. They don't care about you. They care about protecting them. They don't care about killing you. Now, I'm not going to go too much. You know, I'm sad to the point. I mean, the man died. I don't know how I can be happy about that. But I did what I could to get some information in. They've discounted it. I want to go through here a couple things, not to dissuade the loss. And rest in peace, Lavoy Finicum. That was a tragedy. Tragedy. But we got video, all right? And so we got statements now coming out. And I want to show you how easy it is for people in good intentions to use a lack of understanding to advance the wrong thing and and then take it advantage of to advance another thing that supports the system when you're not truly understanding. And I say that advisedly. I'm saying that with the presumption I have a better sight than these guys do, but I think I'll be able to prove it here when I go through this. I have quite a few links. If you want to know about this shooting, it came out, the FBI releases video of the shooting death of an Oregon protester. They didn't call him militant there. That was at least one thing. Again, you watch these words, everyone, even in the alternative, they call these guys militants. So we got to be very careful in how we do that. But that's not the point anymore. A man died at the hands of government in an ambush. And there's lots of questions I have on the legal side of the so-called routine traffic stop. Now, folks, I don't know how many routine traffic stops we're having FBI agents in the trees. But they called this routine. I don't know how many routine traffic stops have a ready-made roadblock in a blind turn a mile or two up the road from the routine traffic stop. And I don't know of a routine traffic stop that purports to have a warrant for a general warrant that they stop a wrong car, a second car. The guy in front isn't told to stop. He takes off, and they end up killing him. But that a warrant to stop someone that they didn't execute on. I don't mean execute by kill. I mean execute the process of arrest on the charge of the warrant. The state police claim they had to pull the second car in line over. We have possibly clearly an invalid stop to begin with. Notwithstanding all that analysis, I want you to see something. And it's people, again, pulling together, getting this information. I called it right off the bat. It was being described to me on a phone. I didn't have a picture of it at the time. It described to me what happened. And I said at the time, when I was told, he put his hands at his waist. And I go, why did he do that? He came out of the truck with his hands up, and then he puts his hand to his waist. I go, that's a major problem. He shouldn't have never done that. And it occurred to me. I asked, did he get shot? He knew to put his hands high, and then he's got his hands at his waist. I'm being explained that. I said, did he get shot? Well, it's starting to turn out, and this is where you got to really watch carefully. It turns out he looks like he was. So FBI releases video. They thought they were going to come out and they were going to show us transparency, right? Well, they want to have you see right through what they're doing. They misstated the beginning of this. They said he had a 9mm pistol. The people in the truck said he didn't have any pistol. Whether it was his regular sidearm on the right or the 9mm the FBI claim one is in the left pocket of his jacket that they claim he's reaching for. In fact, we now have someone who has highlighted the very point and enlarged the very moment that Finicum comes out of the van, comes walking. Actually, he's already out of the SUV, and he's away from the SUV. And a video has been created by who is it? Shuff 1111 on YouTube, showing somebody comes from the road, not the two cops you see, up behind the car, comes out, and if you figure out the angles, as soon as Finicum comes out from behind the vantage, the protection, the cover of the SUV, this guy in brown camo takes an immediate shot. Finicum starts to respond, but the guy's already turned his back and running away. Now, if there's a threat on you, you don't turn your back to that threat. Finicum is responding to what is an apparent gunshot wound given by a guy behind the cop. Pretty neat little shuck and jive here they did. And you get to have the video to see it. Somebody has picked this up and I highlighted it for us. I have the link for you if you don't find it. Blogcaster page is available for all of this. I don't want to really... There's so much to talk about that's no wrong. Just understand these OSP officers murdered this guy, executed him, and they had the help of a camouflaged one. Now, I don't know how routine that stop can be, but this is what they're saying. And then they've apparently planted a gun on him as well. There's a lot to be said around this that I think you need to make yourself aware of, because this is the future now. This is what I was telling you was coming. I said one day you're not going to even be able to surrender. When you see that guy come out from behind the car and shoot, just as soon as he breaks the line, the plane of the protection of the SUV and run away, and then because of the response to the bullet in the guy's left hip, the other two cops shoot at each other. This was an intended execution. Don't miss the comic part of this as well, and the tragedy. The Keystone Cop matter of the guns pointing at each other, the cops pointing at each other to do the shooting. Now, back to the serious part. They executed a man on the highway. Folks, even if he had a gun, they don't have the excuse they feared for their life because he had a gun. You have a right to bear that arm. They have to expect that. That's one thing that doesn't seem to come out. That's why you have to intend to draw a weapon or intend to use it. That has gone away, disappeared from the requirements anymore. It's up to us to now reinforce. And now there's going to be some protests on that death, and it may actually reignite the martyrdom part of this, which I don't, it's hard to say that word in a way because of what it connotes. But this guy was murdered, folks. This guy was was summarily executed, I understand. And that's exactly, as I'm thinking, there's a story out there. 2 words used to describe Oregon protesters' death will have some demanding answers. And this supposed constitutional attorney, Chris Ann Hall, actually used that term, summarily executed. Absolutely. No due process. Absolutely no due process. Now you'll know they'll do all that we feared for our lives. There's not going to be any comment. The fact that he's standing in almost thigh deep snow trying to keep his balance, and then this guy comes out and shoots him. You got to just look at that point. The point where that shot gets taken and what the guy does right after to understand this was a hit. This is a murder. The blood of Lavoy Finicum's Lavoy Finicum's blood is on the hands of everyone, including the governor, who wanted, she's bloodthirst that she wanted. She got it. We can be crickets on this. I'm asking everybody to rethink how they're going to approach it, though. There's a little different way to approach what we're seeing here that'll be more effective than what has happened, and again, what Ammon was doing, which is what I tried to advance, that they thought was an idea, a mere idea. And thank you for the heads up, emailing me, the emailer that emailed me to point out things on different broadcasts that I don't have time to listen to, the nubbin of what happened, the statements, so that I could be aware of that. And my response to the fact of being told through third-party, fourth-party channels on another network that what I told them got to them, and they thought it was just a mere idea, I responded saying what I provided was not a mere idea. It was the law. And it was the law that respected the Constitution the people like Ammon were saying they were supporting, which made their denial and denunciation and non-use of what I offered. It made them a hypocrite to their own cause. I hope you appreciate that, folks. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just telling us we have a weird way to work things out, and it's not correct. In the most good intentioned of us, we have our own problems. That didn't justify the summary execution, okay? Not at all. But I wanted to lay a path for you of how it's easy it is to think you're in the right and you're not. How I've been telling you, it's not about clause, what do they keep spouting? Now, these are constitutional attorneys are doing. I told you they have a problem. They have a major problem. It's not about, darn it, Article 1, Clause, Section 8, Clause 17, whatever that is. See, I don't even care. It's not about that. But everyone's spouting that. It's off point. And it's off point in exactly the way it is off point that I've been suggesting. And so I want you to watch critically, because this is for us to observe and witness how it's being done wrong, and that wrong is good intentions are going wrong, and that is going to be, I'm going to show you how it's being taken advantage of. And it's our lawsuit in 2013 that really is the foundation for coming to see this eventual other corruption that's going to go on and for people. We're not educated to understand. We're ignorant to what we need to be looking at, and that's all being used against us. Anybody I see doing this consistently knows those limitations are in you, and they continue to use them. Should be a concern to you. Why? Protocols of the Elders of Zion, when I tell you is a manual for your human frailty, in part, because there's more, should concern you very, very deeply. And I know it did me. But after the shooting, after this, you can see a summary execution. Mark on the beast at yahoo.com if you think that it wasn't a summary execution when you see the close-up explained to you, because there's so much going on. So much going on. And there always is. You see how pitiful I am as a witness, even though I see a lot, how pitiful. A witness you have to see over and over and over and over, and then you're still drawing this stuff out. How can any witness in one time, in the moment, even see anything accurate is really, it's another lesson on why the jury trial at some level is really a trap too. The lawyer for Lavoy Finicum, who was out of Arizona, he had across the border from Nevada, across from the Clive and Bundy Ranch, and again, this underpins what we sued, this method. This is the effect to the cause of the method we enjoined that was already in Harney County before we got there, but that I was exposing was the fraud on the people and the property, and against the Constitution, making war on the Constitution, that I advanced in a 5-minute statement to the guy who I was talking to, who says, again, he advanced it to the people, and they decided this was just mere ideas. The law I was telling them, and how to implement it, the more proper application, was deemed to be a mere idea. Fascinating. And so, I'm not saying that the knowledge of this would have saved Lavoy, but I don't know. He may not have been in that. They may not have went to John Day, because my suggestion would have been you collect up and you work this out, what I'm telling you, and you send out emissaries that are the active part of getting the word out, what has to happen, and who the ones in the towns and the committees and the commissioners in particular, how they're acting as felons and contrary to the way of the people, to get that knowledge out. To show, don't just say it, but show, here's a law that they're violating. And to support now what's coming out, now as a emotion, asking for the resignation of officers instead of having the law of the usurpation and the breach of law. They now just have their emotion. Rightfully so, but not as powerful as if you can appreciate what I'm trying to suggest here. Lavoie Finicum's lawyer, the dead man's lawyer, how do you figure this out? How bizarre. Tells Lavoie's side of the story of the shooting, if you will, through that interpretation. I got that link. Then Vicki Davis came up, rest in peace, my friend. You are a true hero. I found nothing. The guy was innocent, folks. How much more of a hero do you need? I never know the man, don't know anything about him. I just have there's something about it, a summary execution that's near and dear to me, folks. I'm here because I'm almost one of these victims, right? I'm here. I'm telling you, folks. I am here by a credit card thin gap. That's it. Credit card. This very same thing. Different, but same. Same setup. I mean, point is summary execution. Now, so with all this other stuff going on, lots of people having insight. You need to, I think part of this and part of the links I put together give you this generic insight of somebody that's portrayed. It shows the violation. It shows this guy really wasn't anybody to worry about it. If you think about the Second Amendment being your right and their expectation that you could be carrying, they're not supposed to just shoot you that they are. Certainly not someone supposed to sneak up behind a car, take a pot shot, hit you in the hip and run away. To set the stage for some others to be able to say, oh yeah, I feared for my life. Feared for my life. On someone who's almost hip deep in snow, got his hands up. Almost looks like he's drawing fire from the car. Once he goes down, then they start shooting the car. Maybe he had the right idea and they just killed him, right? We got to shoot the people in the car now. I want to see the close-up pictures on that car, to tell you the truth. Because the FBI did an interesting statement. They said, oh, that was just rubber bullets and some cyanide capsules. So you can believe them or you can believe reality, and that's going to take a little bit more evidence. I saw a summary execution. I saw no justification, even if they had thought they had justification to murder somebody on the street with an ambush set up in a so-called routine traffic stop. It stinks to high heaven just on the story if we didn't even see anything more. The video should answer for you. I'm not going. You make your decision. I've made my decision. I made my decision when I heard how it was told to me. I didn't even need to see the video. The video confirmed exactly what I anticipated was why someone would do what they do. That knew to do better. Jordan Page. This guy's I don't know what you think about Jordan Page. He's a musician. He came up with the Ron Paul thing. I don't know his story at all. I just appreciate his talent. He came up within 2 days with a ballad to Lavoie Finicum. If you want to listen to that, I just threw that in there. People are moved by this. You ought to be. This is innocence being destroyed. I don't mean the childlike innocence, which might have already been destroyed, but I'm talking this is innocence in people's actions and people's intentions and people's lives. This is a man of, I guess he says 50 kids that he brought into his home for, I guess, like child services type thing. Foster care or whatever. I don't know. This is what I heard. This is the kind of rancher, this is ranching life. I mean, oh yeah, okay, he got 50 kids. He had 50 slaves. I know, that's when someone's going to come out. But no. Anybody that knows these people, these ranchers, they really understand. They're peaceable people, and ranching is one of those specialty things in production, isn't it? It's a whole different lifestyle in that. People are completely clueless. I know people who do that, and I'm clueless. When I hear them talk, farmers, real farmers, I'm clueless. I know how to grow, but I'm clueless to what production, that level of production is on land and how to really work it right. There's a special skill about that. It's inherent in people. That's why they go there. It's almost like they can't help it, in a way. Like a lot of miners can't help being miners. You just got to go dig dirt. I don't know what that is. So, and those people are protected in a way because that obsession actually works when you leave it alone to make it work. They know better than we do. And really, when you look at the land disposal law, it's set up to do best uses. Not the best use, the new age best use. The best practices, they say. No, this is a disposed, enjoymented use. 2 parts to a possession. Not a mere utility, like a franchise to vote. Remember, I've been through all this. The enfranchisement of the heathen to civilize him, to stick him in the society, to control him. Production's outside of that. Now, I'm going to have lots of people that argue with me, but let's get down to the specifics, and I'll show you how to divide the line where you see certain court cases that came out. That was a violation too, because the farmer may not have had like the wheat farmer in 1938 starts with a W. Can't go. He made the wrong argument, and the court took advantage of that. That was a breach right there. But no one knows about this stuff. I don't know how I figured this stuff out. Here I am, though. So, what's interesting now to show you, good-intentioned people, got no judgment on, I told you my impression on this, I wish they would have set a better record prior to going in to show that the federal government has no authority in a couple of different ways. Make that record before you go do what you do. To anticipate the fraudulent documentation that would come against you that would abduct you from where you are on the land to a fictitious system. That it was very important to me what came up. I guess this is all I'm going to be talking about today when we get through this. I got so much more to say. I really sometimes just want to just keep going and just break up my archives down to whatever it works and have at it. But at any rate, I'm not wired that way either. Too much stuff. Ammon Bundy recorded a statement and delivered to those remaining at the refuge. It was put on a lawyer's website, his lawyer's website, his attorney household. And I want to read just the first paragraph. And this almost stunned me to see it. Not because it existed, but because of what he didn't follow it up with. And then I immediately went to what he didn't say to prove that he doesn't understand what he's doing. And his attorneys are allowing it, taking advantage. Here it is. And this is pivotal on what happened in our case. The case that you go look up and find the docket is Jefferson Mining District versus Kitzhaber in 2013. Jefferson Mining District versus Kitzhaber. You'll find about 3 links. Go to Justia, and you'll see all the parties. You'll see who was sued. You'll see I'm a party. You'll see it's a default. You'll see the judge entered in and trespassed after he didn't answer quo warranto if the docket exposes that. You aren't not going to get the documents. It's like that case has been sealed, okay? That's just the way that is. That judge was caught. That judge was caught on this very question, I'm telling you, wasn't in Ammon's statement. Let me read the first paragraph. My message still remains. Turn yourselves in and do not use physical force. Use the national platform we have to continue to defend liberty through our constitutional rights in an Article 3 court with an Article 3 judge. Period. He ends right there. I know there are no accessible Article 3 courts, folks. We proved it in our court case. So what's he talking about? He's talking the gibberish that he's picked up somewhere. He hasn't tested the waters and checked it out before him. He hasn't checked the battlefield out before he got there. What he ought to have said, and this was immediate when I read this, on this lawyer's webpage, to allow the period without exposing the next part. But we know the process issuing out of the indictment was from an other than Article 3 court. Shows that we don't have access to justice. Would have been a paraphrase of maybe what I would have added. That he knew that he was not processed by an Article 3 court is imperative to understand that his attorneys are allowing to pass as you believe he's waiting for an Article 3 court is being processed by an Article 3 court because he said so. It is a major deception right in your face. And let me prove it. And you'll get the links to this and anybody, and thank you to Gary L. for pulling this up. And thank you to Gary L. for working on this to really have anybody to understand these things. What's the remedy against this stuff he's asking. And we're kind of talking a little bit. And thank you I didn't have the time to get the documents. I always appreciate being able to go there and look real quick. I don't have the time to really study a lot of things, and I can't get into a lot of things I find is very fascinating, but I do appreciate having knowledge. In fact, I've got a lot of tabs I don't talk about where I've had past emails. I just don't get to the subject matter. Fascinating disclosure if we just get to it, that I don't want to touch it without understanding it better, right? I want to give the better information. So, let's go to the indictment. Now, Article 3 court with an Article 3 judge. Remember, I told you in our case, Article 3 court has to be convened before the Article 3 judge can preside or reside in that jurisdiction. with the capacity of an Article 3 judge. And I told you we knew before going into our suit that we would get an Article 1 article, and other than Article 3 court, it'd be Article 1, Article 4, or it could be an Article 2. You don't really know. It depends on how they deal with it once you get there. And they would give us a senior judge or a magistrate, which are not. In particular, the senior judge, because they used to be. They've retired the commission of their Article 3 commissioning. They've retired that to be the senior judge. They're like this guy, the guy that we had, there's a fossil on the bench. He also happens to be a non-practicing bar member. He's a member and the trustee to the university system school that was the aider and abetter of the plunder against the people. This is a complete fraud and conflict of interest, but that's not what we focused on. We asked the senior judge, show us your commission. We know you retired it. You said so. You did that in 1992. You aren't an Article 3 court, but an Article 3 judge. He couldn't produce the Article 3 court for folks, and I knew that. Why? Because the statutes say. The statutes at 28 U.S.C. 88 to 131 is where all your district courts are. And you look very, very, very carefully, and you're going to find there's only 2 district courts that are Article 3 courts. The rest are territorial or legislative courts. This is the sleight of hand. Additionally, you'll find out when you go try to get to those Article 3 courts, they're not really there either. An Article 1 or Article 4 bankruptcy court will answer you. And the actual Article 3 court sits in an appellate capacity, proving you live in an administrative life. And you have to go through that before you get to the Article 3 court, which is a violation to all producers, to show you how far off the law this has been for how long. Now, I know I'm talking fast, but this is how this works out. I'm streaming now, folks. Can't help it. Just comes out. We go immediately. Article 3 courts are district courts of the United States. And they're real slick about how they hide this in the statutes. Look at the order of the words here. District Court of the United States. That is designates an Article 3 court. You still have to qualify that it's actually convened. But at least if it's on the title, the District Court of the United States is on the title, you've got a better chance of being in Article 3 and a better chance that the judge is commissioned in Article 3 if he says he's in Article 3 or she is in Article 3. That's not proven until they prove it, and you require they prove it on a quo warranto, which we did, and they failed. They couldn't convene an Article 3 court. I'm going to tell you that there's no district court in any state other than 2. Oregon has no district court of the United States that's Article 3. None. What they are, go look at the paper. The process is the paper. Go look at the title of the court. You're going to find what you all been hearing and what's on every judgment against everybody in federal court, against the Hammonds, against the Bundys, against the property owners down in Arizona, in New Mexico, against the Hages, against the 7 miners that went to the same court that the Hammonds in right now and got destroyed because that court will not look at law. We have all the proof, all the record. This is not even a doubt. And we know why. We got that sued now. We know why. The Hammonds in the same court. Those courts are, listen to the order of the words. The District Court of the United States is the Article 3 court by name generally. Though all these other courts are United States District Courts. They're not district courts of the United States. Their title is United States District Court. That designates a territorial legislative court under other articles of the Constitution than Article 3. I hope you're following this because Ammon's been put in Portland. It's a United States District Court. It's an Article 1, Article 4, it's an other than Article 3 court. And he's accepted process by pleading into it. And his attorneys did not challenge the status and standing and establishment and convening of the Article 3 status. They silently allowed this guy to say, I'm going to fight this thing in Article 3 court before an Article 3 judge and let Ammon believe he is. And because he believes and you all believe, then you think that's the fact. Now, I'm watching a felony going on here. I'm watching treason going on here, folks. Treason is to make war on the United States. That's as simple as it is. These people are making war on the laws of the United States. They take advantage, they take opportunity, and they're all part of a clan, a gang. Organized criminals. Go watch the process, folks. I was shocked away. he talks about Article 3 courts, Article 3 judges, and I knew he was already in Portland. And I know we made extra filings in our case to try and get a court to convene in Article 3. We addressed the chief judge who was in non-feasance to do so, folks. This is fraud on its face. This is the same terrorist judge that allowed the terrorist to read a book and exonerate herself with the same sentence as Hammonds for using their pertinent right to property to backfire to protect their property as an arsonist. It's the writings here. If you're watching this kind of TV, folks, it's fascinating reality TV. I'm talking to you, folks. It's immediate. When I saw his statement, I've never seen the declaration of going to an Article 3 court, an Article 3 judge on any attorney's website. I said, the fix is in. And sure enough, you go to the proof, the process of what court just got them to work through. And it was a magistrate judge, an administrative judge in an other than Article 3 court that has admitted them into that jurisdiction, and the attorneys gave nary a peep. But they come out and say, we're in phase 2 now. Let's use the national platform, and it's an Article 3 court because that's what Hammond wanted. And he's not knowledgeable enough about the Constitution that he purports to understand, and the system that's come up underneath that to understand he ain't getting and may not be able to get. We proved he can't get it. That's what I was telling him before. Read our case. Understand what it is before you think you're going to get involved with these people that are going to put the wrong process on you and pretend it's correct. I hope I'm not going too fast on this, folks. This is critical to understand. The overarching oppression is this thing, and it's a part of it. It's right on the paperwork. You don't have to go anywhere. They put the first one under seal. I got the link for that, and then they brought out the one that they actually filed 2. The dates on them are all screwed up as well. 2 days different, inverted timing. The one under seal is a different day than the one that got put in, and they were done within a few minutes. I don't know how that works, but anyway, the one that was redacted actually just took out their birth dates. The one that came out from under seal had all that redaction taken out, and you have to understand, your birth date is important, notwithstanding they don't ask for your birth certificate. That becomes part of the record they go get. That's a fraudulent creation of that straw man you all talk about. That's easy to deal with. Easy to deal with. Everyone makes such a big deal about this. I told how to deal with that. I'm not going to touch it right now. Point is that Ammon thinks he understands the Constitution, and I'm telling you his proof that he doesn't, and he's going to go down. Now, I'm not judging him. I want someone to go tell his father, if he still has his father he can talk to. I understand there may be some little friction going on. This is how they divide it all up. His father has been told the judgments against him are on Article 2, Article 1 court, Article 4 court, and they're invalid, and they haven't moved on it either. So we have a mass ignorance going on that is not acting correctly to help protect you. You have it to do. I say you can't be quiet on this stuff. The presumptions are against you. When they go in and they agreed to arrange the court to be an Article 1, Article 2, other than Article 3 court, they have consented and waived, by rule, this is how the occupier does it, waived their rights underneath the Article 3. That's fixable, but for the most part they don't understand that, so it's not going to happen. And when you go to do that, they won't. Again, we have a chief judge, supposedly an Article 3 judge, in a district court of the United States, who is in non-feasance. That's a fraud by non-action of doing a duty that's owed. And the duty owed to a producer is that relationship of grantor-grantee, trustor-trustee, not person, not user, not legal entity, not individual, but a different style relationship that they're obligated to protect, that they're not. And they is the legitimate government to protect, but you're not looking at a legitimate government. You're looking at one under private international law that secreted itself upon the land and converted everything in front of your face. So much so that all the people that read the Constitution don't even know what they're looking at, and they don't understand the most basic legal process to understand that they've been duped. And I'm telling you, they're duped, and they're dupable just like all of us. And I think I see an answer to expose a bigger problem that I think is being swept under the rug. And I can tell you, folks, when I read this and knew right what it was about, and I understand what our case did, this is a case that's attempting to attack what we proved in 2013. They're trying to disprove that by pushing us down. There is no Article 3 courts available to us. We proved it. We found the Article 3 court at a federal circuit court that has nationwide jurisdiction under Article 3. Oh, wow. Look how they handled that one. That's clean. But guess what? When we got there, their court looked at it and said, we got nothing to look at here. Why? Because our process was done by default. There was no issue anymore. The contrary party, the defendant, had agreed to the principles laid out in the claim. The harm that was laid out. They agreed. There was nothing to review when the two parties agreed by default. And the court, we have an order from the Article 3 court saying there's nothing before that court, confirming the default's perfection. Where we had malfeasance and nonfeasance and there's another feasance, misfeasance, actually, there's 3 of them, in the clerk to fail to do the law. This is what you're facing when you go to the court. So no, you can't use the courts. What you do is you out them for the crime that they are against you. And it's that easy, folks. I know I just said a whole lot, but it's that easy. Now what do we do? Wow, that's a bigger question. Enforcement has always been an issue, isn't it? That's an issue. That's a real issue, the enforcement. And the courts, no matter of all, were ever actually put in the placement of collecting judgments. That's back to you. And so our agreement to be a nation, if you will, that the organic documents of which said that the government is to protect property, with the capital R rights, has been usurped and infiltrated, is our responsibility to throw out. As I said to you over and over. Now here's an object lesson right in our face. A big deal. I'm watching you. I'm telling you. We have an insight on the correct way. We have an insight on how it's being steered off the tracks again. And I am explaining to you that when they do that, it'll come under the banner of an Article 3, and it's not. And everybody will go, oh, well, I guess he got his due. No, they got extortion and conversion and treason on them, and no one says anything about this. Now I am to you. They didn't want to go there, and so we have this void in the record over all the fraud and crime and treason that we proved. It's a self-evident case, folks. We sued the system that was going to tell us that they were going to deny us for the breach of trust that would be. And they did it. I get excited at that level. I didn't realize it was that slick a deal. I figured it was, but you don't know until when you turn the engine to something, you don't know what kind of a deal did you get when you finally get it going. And then it started purring like a kitten, and I didn't buy a kitten. But the purring sounded pretty cool. It's here for us, folks. I'm just trying to point out. All this stuff is like this everywhere. So then we find out this the FBI that looks like I can't tell. It's this guy in the camo comes up and shoots Lavoie right as he breaks the plane of view, right in the direction of the other officer behind the tree as well, with a rifle, no less. Shoots Lavoie and runs away. We find out that the special agent in charge of the Oregon occupation issue, apparently not the occupation, but the so-called law enforcement, the Guidoization, the organized criminals against peaceful protesting, Craig Bretzig, linked to national security breach, fraud, and corruption in Salt Lake City. If you think your FBI agents are squeaky clean and law-abiding. And so remember, we also did a show cause to the Secretary of Interior and said, show cause how these things are not felonies that you've committed back in Washington out here or treason. And they didn't answer except to send the FBI out, which the interim chairman put tar baby out for the guy to grab, and he grabbed it. And so we got him dirty. He dirtied himself with the law. But they sent out the Guido to intimidate us under the claim that we were intimidating the government. Aha. Well, we have an answer. So nothing's happened since then, and we still have things to do, but more people are needed to do that, and so things go a little bit slower. To the mass frustration of lots of people that want things to go faster, but only things can happen so much. That people in the FBI, they're criminals, folks. They're just an evidence of it. I don't have to go so far. Eventually, a few days later now with the internet, all this information starts to come out. The people that murdered Lavoie are also violating the law in other places under color of authority. That's a felony. At least one. There's actually two in a bunch. I was thinking last night. There's actually tons and tons of felonies that start to develop almost instantaneously if you start applying this. Someone coming underneath a costume and then taking something from you. So what have we been talking about here? Our suit was about sustainable development, the method they use to implement it. All these players are involved in this way. They use the courts this way in order to pull you out of where you are deserving of. And then the entire system is there to keep the lid on that, unless you work out the rules to allow that failure to incriminate or perfect the conviction that they're the criminal, which is what we did in our lawsuit. Like I said, it's a self-evident proof of criminality, the way it was set up and then the way it was treated as we predicted it would if we were in an occupied state. You understand? Think about what I just said there. We took a theory that you guys all think is all ideas. Oh, you can point, it's this, that, and the other. No, okay, let's take that for real and let's prove it. We believe that this idea, that's just an idea because we have no proof actually. We see its effects. We have no actual proof. We're going to presume it does exist and we're going to respond into it with that expectation. And if it does, we're going to respond, have a paper that the process here, a strategy, that if it responds just like that, we're going to get the outcome we need. And if it doesn't, then we're proved wrong. And it fulfilled our wishes. It declared it was a criminal that we thought it was, that we theorized, that all the ideas tell us, that no one else puts together, that reduces it down to something factual and makes a case from it. Rather just yell and keyboard type and rant and all kinds of stuff about how it's all no good. We worked out how that was going to be a trap. I told you a long time ago, this is a beast that runs down, it's a government beast that runs from a den to the water every day, and it has one path, and it always works that way. And I told you, if you can figure out, I told you this a long time ago. So this is what I was working on a long time ago. If you put a man trap, if I can call it that, an animal trap, a pit, in that path, the animal will fall into it. We created that trap in our case, and they fell into it. A self-evident proof. This is doable everywhere. Ammon has it right now. He could if they took our court case and said, hey, you guys just violated me. My own attorneys just violated me. He would restate what we found out in 2013 and expose the bigger corruption and show that we no longer live in the country everyone thinks they live in, that they think a constitution works. It does, but not the way they understand, the way maybe I understand. The proof is I can see where they who believe they understand the Constitution better are making fundamental mistakes and the occupier is taking advantage. The agent of the occupier is taking advantage. They don't pass my gaze, but they seem to pass the expert's gaze. They seem to pass the ones that say they have knowledge. I find that sad, and I find that highly, highly dangerous. And so we find we are easily led by the nose. This is one of those things that we get led by the nose. I tell you, get that ring out so you can't be led by the nose. As the beast of burden you're treated as. Even presumed so, that's so easy to throw the reins off. That we come from sustainable development because it was the method plunder that they're putting on everybody. They have the spears, they have the minions that are working this thing on. Not the minions. I'm not talking about the little pastries that you eat, little Twinkie characters. No, I'm not talking about those little minions. I'm talking about the real dangerous, concentrated evil type minions. But sustainable development, I told you, watch these implementations. We talked about all this. What we sued goes all the way back, ripples through the funding, leveraging streams, all the way back to Washington. All that agency stuff goes right up to the unqualified one's office, and he's the one that commands a lot of this stuff. And sure enough, Obama announces $1 billion to 13 states to build climate-resilient communities, and gets told off on Twitter. Yay for social media, but that's not good enough. Climate resilient communities is one of the things they're doing that our suit enjoins the method that we would, if we had enough people, to engage this thing. You want to talk about engagement? We'll do it this way. That he is bringing out this resilient, climate resilient communities, a complete fraud, expending so-called monies from the public so-called treasury. They only call it treasury, not the treasury. Remember that. Capital T, and that's it. It's a noun. That is the thing. And I was reading about, when I was reading to you last week about Flint, Michigan, I was not surprised to see this bill come out, $1 billion to 13 states to build climate resilient communities, which is all tied into all the other stuff we've been talking to. But you know what? Not one penny went to Flint, Michigan to do the water. Why? Why do you think, folks? What did I tell you? I said Flint, Michigan's probably already on a program. It's probably already, I said, like Detroitification is the effect of this newfangled imposition upon our lives. That the Flint water system is probably involved in a project already inside sustainable development. And sure enough, it came up. But that was the fact. I'm trying to remember now where the story went. I don't think I see it here. Excuse me for a second. Went right over as I was thinking about what's coming down the pike. I forgot to see if it was here. So I'm going to tell you about it, notwithstanding the fact I can't find it. Flint, Michigan, in a little story, just marked it too. Where the heck did it go? I wanted to read it from you because there's a paragraph in the bottom of the story. And it essentially, I'll get the link out later. It says that they moved the water system in preparation for the regionalization of the water supply system. And if you miss the term regionalization, you're missing it, folks. They are doing a sustainable development inclusion. That's why no money had gone there, because it's already been there. You're literally watching the Detroitification of the whole country as an example. I told you it would be exampled through the Detroit, Flint, Michigan, all that Michigan area. It's regionalized supply of water. That's public-private partnership. I think something happened. They ran out of something, because they had a supply that was coming from Detroit. In fact, it turns out that Detroit was going to give them like a 40 or 50% discount to keep them on proper water. And this governor decided not to, and we're finding out it's because of a regionalism project. This is sustainable development. And you see people suffer now underneath it. All right, so these brilliant minds in the seats of decision really don't have, they're not really thinking out for you at all. They're thinking about this global order and implementing it, and the crickets allow it because the crickets just are content. Apparently, they don't really care to drink dirty water, unpotable water. They're willing to accept the platitudes, and they're willing to go out and yell and scream and do everything, but not anything that's right and correct. While a place is being regionalized. This is the thing. And I told you that. I said the week before. I said I wouldn't doubt that we're going to find that it's already there. And I said this is going on across the country. Let's get to the so-called pollution, the potability side. I said you're going to find more and more and more cities coming up with now admitting this is a problem. And look at what happened last week. It's like a script, folks. It's just a script. And everybody does the wrong thing in order to fix it. And they complain. They do their yelling and they're screaming. And they just don't go fix it. They don't capture the people that made the wrong decision to put them in that and make that stick and then arrest the people that protect them as aiders and betters. They just don't take the first initiative. They hand it over to someone else and scream and yell for someone else to do it. And these geniuses that we think are in government doing right decisions, it was fascinating to hear this report of Obama signing this resilience, the advice that he uses, and what comes up the chain. There's no chain of command really that's any kind of thought, that's any kind of real intelligence because it's on an agenda. Here's the proof. Admiral in charge of the Navy intelligence has not been allowed to see military secrets for years. For more than 2 years, the Navy intelligence chief has been stuck in a major handicap. He's not allowed to know any secrets. Vice Admiral Ted Twigg Branch has been barred from reading. I read that. Twigg Branch is his name. Has been barred from reading, seeing, or hearing classified information since November 2013. when the Navy learned that the Justice Department had his name had surfaced on a giant corruption investigation involving foreign defense contractors and stores of naval personnel. Now, long story short, they haven't proceeded to figure out one way or the other. He's like a Guantanamo prisoner who's going to accuse him, but not do the research to figure out whether he did or not. So we're going to keep him in a position, but we're not going to give him any intelligence. So they have aides do the work that is his work to do. They have aides do that. If you don't think that we're living in some insane reality, that's why I tell people, don't try to rationalize this stuff. Just don't try to rationalize it. You can't. You got to cut right through to what has to happen. This is the kind of information going through this administration. And then the Senate comes to help them. Remember, the political parties we also sued. That's the Senate and the House. That's all these political people. If they're not an attorney, they're in a political party. All corporations, all legal entities. No one goes after that. We did. Could take a little bit, but we did. We got a record now. We laid our foundation. You all have to lay that foundation somewhere, somehow, in your right you want to make wrong. And the Senate comes out and gives this idiot a president authority to declare international martial law. If he hadn't already had it under the NDAA provisions where they got rid of international law at all, in the memo they tell us that. Remember, I predicted all this. Now the Senate's complicit with this thing. They want to hand the president the power to make war without their decision. I don't know if they can do that constitutionally. That's not their discretion. That was given by the Constitution for that body. So here we have people not paying attention. Someone's going to have to stop this, but they're saying that this next president now, they're pondering whether or not they're going to give him what they're calling to be international martial law. I said your world always did martial law. This is just a major brute and bully and warmongering violence that they claim they have power to unleash on the world. They certainly don't have that power, and yet these people in political parties have gone insane and believe that they can do this. I'm not going to read more of the story. The blogcaster has all this stuff. You can read it. The use of military force, AUMF, declaring war on is something, a self-inflicted wound created by the United States in order for you to go attack and be feared of it. They're using that as the reason, self-inflicted creation, in order to create this decision that they get to go fight it. Talk about fighting boogeymen in closet, folks. And we sit here and watch that. The crickets are this is better than popcorn. Maybe it's popcorn crickets. We watch this show, and it's destroying people. It's destroying our nation. It's destroying us. Did I keep telling you about the lawsuit? Oh, yeah, big deal. Folks, it's our foundational document. I'm not saying it cures the world. We did a big deal here, though. I keep thinking about this. It's monstrous. I see now reflections of everything not everything, and things that are going on, trying to cover what we exposed. This guy coming into the legislature that interfered with your rights, folks, under the national mining law. Whether you wanted to know or understand or do anything with it or not, the future generations will want to know that you stood up against this theft, this extortion, this fraud. A little one in your family comes out west or there's some place where the lands are available for appropriations, won't be able to access them because today we didn't speak up on a simple petition that outed some bar member who was sitting in a thief capacity that was a friend with the legislature who is a friend, like the 1,000 Friends of Oregon that destroyed the people's property and policy input. You remain silent on that petition and you allow that. You destroy the future of anybody who wants to come after us. This is how important this becomes. These people don't need intelligence. They can have people that are questionable. They don't work on that. The Senate's going to supposedly give authority to declare international martial law, in quotes. Come on, when are we going to get real with this? At that point, I start to think I'm stunned about why do I even have to say this? Why do we go off and do other things than what we have to do? Why do we, when it comes to us, the guy that takes the mantle of waking up a county, it does it wrong. I say he's doing it wrong. I'm saying he's doing it wrong because I see what he says and then I see what he did. And I know I have a foundational case that I'm a party to. Record, no opinion. But the same people that have done this illusion are the ones we claim did do the illusion and agreed. I'm beyond opinion on this. He has done incorrectly, if I can say, maybe soften that up. He's done wrong on his belief he's been doing right. That's crickets, but this is probably the most serious one because it's going to lull a whole lot of more people into being crickets. The point is lost. Now, I can only give what I could give. I still have an insight. I still have a voice. I still have who knows what comes up in the future. I'm talking with people to figure out maybe how we can help make sure the information's available, whether or not it'll be accepted, to amplify what we did in 2013. The Ammon case is actually that case. If you read what they did, you read the indictment, it's pretty poor. I think it's a throwaway indictment. They'll get who they get. It's like the 7 minors. They got them all completely wrong. They got them. I know in 3 of them we were doing the law. We were submitting the law. The court would not agree to that. They wouldn't agree that there was no authority in the agency and had no authority. It's complete plunder. This is what they're facing. But see, at that time, this is how we started figuring things out as well. Didn't quite get the idea yet about that Article 3 problem, that Article 1 problem. So this is how you do it when you learn. We haven't been successful in everything, but we've learned by what we found may have been a mistake. Ammon hasn't done that. Ammon wouldn't take wise counsel, if I can say it that way. Not my opinion. I said refer to this case, not me. I'm just a piece of it. I just happened to be the guy who had to research the point and the strategy and work with the other guy to work the strategy and the crew, the whole assembly of Jefferson Mining District, to work out that we could work it out. That's all we are. And apparently we worked it out. And now it's for people to pick up as a baton, if you want to go beat people with it, or as a stepping stone to fortify the next position that Ammon can do right now. And my mind starts to wander here. There's so much to talk about on this. So I want to go talk about it, but I know I can't. It's useless to talk about all these conditions until we solve the root problems. And solve is a funny word, but until we at least arrest it, I think that's the bottom line. In fact, there's another court case, and thank you to Cowboy Tech, and I don't have this link. Maybe Cowboy Tech can put it up. He sent he sent me a video about someone in West Virginia, and excuse me for not knowing their names. Oh, Hudock comes to mind. The guy that's worked out. You listen to what they did after 30-6. You go at the video 30 minutes in, 6 seconds beyond, right about there, and I couldn't tell you that I wasn't talking, folks. And I realized they went their certain way, something we decided not to go the way they ended up focusing on. We picked up what they did on the backside of telling the federal judge that he gave too much power to a state that was a corporation. So I got to the corporation issue through 1953 in a backwards way. It wasn't our first approach. I didn't want to approach it that way. That they went right at the corporation status of their state. Now they have a different view, and I think they've done couple things that they had to alter. But for the most part, you hear someone who starts to get in their face, and they had the same response that the courts had to them, but they didn't know how to kind of get around that. But you get into about 30 minutes into that little video, and I couldn't tell really, for the most part, in generality, the words coming out of him would be some very, very close to the words that you hear coming out of me. In other words, he came to the stinking abyss. We stand shoulder to shoulder. We saw the same stinking abyss, and the response, the utterances are the same. It means you're two witnesses looking at the same thing. It has to be at least a fact in law between the two of you. We are not speaking too much different. Our approach, our path was slightly different. It came to the same conclusion. It came to the same response. They don't quite know how to deal with that a little bit. And this was back in July, and I don't know what's happened since. My point is here, folks, there's another group of people in 2015 that addressed a slightly different thing than we did to out the usurpers. And their complaint was our complaint. We don't have enough people helping in the enforcement side. It's fascinating to watch the mirrors of response. It's really it's cool at one level, it's terrifying at another. And yet we are sitting in a position of certainty nonetheless. Is pretty empowering. And I'm going to say, well, I was going to not say it, but I got one more. We're running out of time, but I got to get past this story. Because I keep running up here. This is as far as I get on my tabs. I keep getting to this guy's story, and I want to move it on because I want to get to this resilient cities nonsense. And this is why I wanted to push through, because I was just thinking about it. So excuse me for jumping really quickly here. But judge orders U.S. landlord to learn Islam. Judge, this is a bar member ordering someone to associate with a religion that's not his to be more acceptable, inclusive of the Islamic religion. I'm not making a judgment one way or the other, but this is a bar member bringing on diversity, isn't he? And this is part of the resilient climate network thing that the Obama's put in. This is what all this it helps to fortify. A judge has ordered a landlord who was involved in a dispute with a Muslim tenant to learn Islam as part of her punishment for a fight in which the renter was pushed down a flight of stairs, prompting a legal analyst to describe the action as a constitutional outrage. I won't read more. This is the imposition of the usurper of its foreign policies. Violating the Constitution at levels, violating criminal law, violating the process, because there is none actually. They have adopted the form as law in as courts. It's not even admiralty, you guys making this all up for yourself. It's a private law from a private organization that put it on you, a trade organization. And business is good, folks, in this trade organization called the Bar Association. Business is good. I can get this. I don't care. You can hit it at the corporation if you want. It's not the only way to get it. In fact, I think that's a blinder. So you can do that. That's why we didn't go there. Someone else did, but they found the same thing. So they went there, and that's fine. But I don't focus my analysis on this corporate status stuff. No, it's all corporate status stuff at some point. Any aggregate interest coming together with a single response, a single voice, if I can say that, is a corporate interest. It's not the big deal. What are you doing with it? What's the jurisdiction? What's the authority? What's the extent? What's going on with this thing? These people, this trade union called the Bar Association, is running your life at every facet and using all the tools, and they tell you right in their House Delegates resolution I read to you, there's 3 of them from way back when. I tell you exactly what they're doing, exactly where the source of all this is. And that comes in and tells a landlord, now you know a landlord now is a slave to the state because you didn't understand about, you made a deed and you told yourself a landlord and all this nonsense starts coming. You have real property instead of going back to the patent and saying, get off my land. Because you're the sovereign that was accepting the sovereign's grant of soil as it was obligated. Whole different language cups up here. No. You go in and you walk in and thinking that these people are something. And you give authorita. It's up to us to do that or not. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Thank you for listening to me go a little bit long on the requested donations, and I just did it again. I'm asking for that, especially with our Real Liberty Media. And the request for servers and more capacity on streaming, or different capacity, if I have that wrong. And to UCY.TV, thank you very much, Jules. And terrestrial broadcasters and Grammy Mary running WordTruth.org social network that also has Spreaker accounts to run, and the servers and the people behind the scenes. I'm not sure what all that is. I really don't get into all that. I appreciate everyone doing what they can do and where they're doing it, and providing a place for me to I can only hope I'm doing what I need to do here. I haven't gotten any indication that it's not needed or not viable, and I don't think times have run me out. I wondered about that, and no, it hasn't. And in fact, it's getting more and more imperative that somehow I figure out how to communicate to y'all more than just giving you the belief that you know that it is wrong, but to act up against it and do it in a proper way. So anyway, I finally got to my judge. That's the one tab I got more this week. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Thank you very much. Hope everything works out. Hope this was valuable to y'all. I know I talk fast, but that's just we got the file. That's what digital's perfect for. So take care with all yourself, and tech tips willing and anything else in nature. I'll see you next week.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.